It's
Finally here.
it's been a while.
It has been a
We've
while.
been working overtime to try to get this thing working, but we finally got it working. So
It's great. It's great to be on, and obviously, thank you very much for having some patience to get me on. Obviously, we're at pick 18, and this is kind of where a lot of the depth kind of rises here, and we don't really, we don't have as much knowledge when it comes to the last part. I mean, I know that Cam Whitmore is still on the board, which is pretty shocking. He's supposed to be a top 10 talent, and he is falling off of the board. But a lot of the best talent, a lot of the big names have already came off the board now. Uh, but Derek, we've three trades in the NBA, and we still have a full off season to go. But for now, there is a team out west that is themselves situation, but I don't know about you, but I don't know this Phoenix team with this Bradley Beal acquisition here put themselves over the top to be able to beat a Denver Nuggets.
yeah, yeah. I don't really think with the acquisition of Bill that they are a favorite in the West. We made this comment when they made the trade for Kevin Durant and the amount of people what they gave up in that trade to bring in KD, and we both felt like what they gave up, you can't get back on the important aspect of the game, which comes down to rebounding, defense, and you lose a couple good, very good role players that were important in what the Phoenix Suns was all about. So, I mean, yeah, of course, in the playoffs, Chris Paul got hurt. I mean, he's normally hurt every year. They make it to the playoffs, so you know who for where did Chris Paul go again?
Well, he went to Washington in the trade, and then Washington just dealt him today to go to Golden State.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, with Paul, we'll see how that goes there. But yeah, man, I think Denver's still the favorite. Um, you got a young Sacramento Kings team that's going to give some problems to a lot of teams, and you know we'll see what the Lakers do. In the off season, they've made their draft choice here just recently in the last couple of draft picks, but yeah, I mean Denver's deep. They got talent and they got Jokic and Murray, so it's
To
going to
to
be really
me,
hard.
to me, the key for Denver in their offseason coming up will be Bruce Brown. If they're able to keep him, if they're able to re-sign Bruce Brown, I think that's going to be one of the most important offseason pieces for Denver because Bruce Brown, as we all saw in the finals and in the conference finals, was extremely important for Denver to be able to throw a ball handler and a defender and a shooter, kind of do it all in a sense, like a poor man's Marcus Smart, kind of. And I would say that Bruce Brown being able to keep him will still be able to have Denver as the favorite in the West this coming season.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way, man. I just think, you know, when you coming fresh off a championship, and they did it in the fashion that they did, they were the best team from day one in the Western Conference. They went wire to wire, and got into the playoffs. They took care of business, and it's going to be hard to outdo that. Chris Paul, leaving and bringing in Bradley Bill. It's only one basketball, right? Yeah, you got a few options, but the problem with Phoenix was never, scoring. They can score points, they can score points. One, so I don't to bring in somebody that can score even more points. You still only got one basketball. It's going to take touches out of the hands of Durant. It's going to take touches away from the other guy. Uh, I always forget his name.
Devin
Shoot,
Booker.
yeah, Devin Booker. It's going to take touches away from Devin Booker and some of the other guys that's there that they do a pretty decent job offensively. They do a good job of moving the ball around. They just ran into a better team. And so sometimes that happens. You see a lot of teams making these these trades. Are they reactionary trades, or because they see everybody else making these trades, or are they trades because they need these players? I mean, there's been a
Well,
ton of movement.
well, as it stands right now, after the Durant and the Beal trades, Phoenix doesn't control any of their first round picks till how far out do you want to guess, Derek?
Well, I already heard, and I thought when I heard it, I was like, "There's no way." So it's 2023, 2030.
So 2031 is the next time they will be able to control a draft pick the way that their team stands at the moment. They have given every single pick imaginable, any pick swaps imaginable to be able to have this team the way it is. Durant, Booker, Aiton, and Beal, and a bunch of dudes that they might some guys might come in on the minimum. They'll have to get some undrafted guys or people off the free agency pool that no one signed, or guys that are old that haven't been in the league for a little bit. That's what they're kind of looking at. So for Beal to come in, who hasn't necessarily he hasn't necessarily played games to take this big of a gamble in the last couple of years. I think this Phoenix thing will probably blow up in their face more often than likely. Yeah, they'll have a good regular season record, and yeah, they're not a bad team, but I think this was the wrong move in Washington to put all that stuff in his contract extension last summer for a star that's not a guy you can build your franchise around. And Washington was not somehow able to get out of that and have a way less contract situation. Once they, of course, they moved Chris Paul to Golden State today in the Jordan Poole trade. I would much rather have Jordan Poole's extension compared to obviously the Bradley Beal one, where he has the only no trade clause in the NBA. Nobody else
Yeah,
in the NBA has a no trade clause except for Bradley Beal.
yeah. That's a lot of capital to give up for one guy. Um, I,
It's
uh,
it's six second round picks, 4 pick swaps.
whew, that's tough,
They
man.
did get back. They did get back, I think, in an almost NBA backup point guard Jordan Goodwin in the deal with Washington. Washington did send him over there. On a team that's going to be completely depleted, the Suns will be. You will actually see Jordan get a pretty decent amount of minutes. It doesn't mean that it's going to be great, but he will actually play, believe it or not, even with these 4 stars on this roster. That's how much depth they don't have.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be challenging for them to, I'm gonna say, fill the roster and find the right pieces with very little resources available at their disposal. So, obviously they made the trade and they think that this is the best thing for them moving forward. But man, I didn't look at Bill. I didn't look at Bradley Bill as that type of dude.
Chris Paul on his book tour after the trade said that Isaiah Thomas, Detroit Pistons, Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas, is a real voice to the new owner in Phoenix, where he is, a real voice advisory-wise. And Derek, let me tell you, if you have Isaiah Thomas kind of telling you how to evaluate talent,
You got a
go
problem.
after this guy, do this, you got to run for the freaking hills. He is a
Yeah.
bad talent evaluator. When the league in the mid-2000s was starting to become more guard-oriented, a little bit more perimeter, Isaiah Thomas was the GM of the Knicks. And when Eddie Curry was a really bad center in Chicago, a busted draft pick, somehow the Knicks traded for him and gave him a lot of money because they thought that him and Tyson, they thought him and another center that they had could bang everybody down low when everybody was starting to score more. To me, what is the opposite of what Isaiah Thomas thinks that the NBA should be doing right now? He thinks he thinks that the Phoenix Suns should be an ABA team and just outscore everybody. I think that the Suns are delusional to think that, and they're going to pay a pretty hefty price. If Bradley Beal's going to make over $40 million in the next couple of years, there's not many guys in the league that make $40 million plus. So how are you going to salary match that? Especially when the cap, the cap numbers have changed and they're not favoring stuff that Phoenix is doing right now. They're trying to get away from that. So there's some more balance in the league. And I think Phoenix is going to be really stuck with Beal's money that I don't know what they're going to do with it.
So would you say, the Suns, put themselves in a lose-lose situation?
They put themselves in no man's land. I mean, good no man's land. They're not in the league. They're your team, of course, but they locked themselves into this team where if Durant gets a little older, he gets one more major injury, and all of a sudden Durant doesn't have a lot of trade value anymore. Beal just, mopes around, becomes barely a 20-point scorer, not as explosive as he used to be. All of a sudden, you're looking at John Wall, Westbrook type of only situation where you can trade him. Back in those times where obviously Westbrook and Wall got traded multiple times.
Yeah.
So you're going to be limiting yourself of who you can actually go after in the future or even get any draft capital back. So to me, the Suns have really put themselves in a corner. Yeah, they're going to be a good team, and yeah, they're going to be exciting. They'll have a good record, but if this thing doesn't work, it's going to be a disaster for them to undo it.
Yeah, man. I'm sure we'll be talking about the Phoenix Suns here for the next couple of years because for number one, I guess people forgot about Isaiah Thomas' tenure when he was in was it New York?
Knicks GM, and
Yeah,
he
the
was
Knicks
awful.
GM.
They
Yeah,
were
and he was
terrible during his time.
terrible, terrible. So uh, I didn't even know Isaiah Thomas was like back in the league as any type of advisor,
I mean,
advisory role.
he's on NBA TV, but according to Chris Paul, Isaiah Thomas was a pretty big factor in the new owner with the Suns making it. Isaiah Thomas in his ear making the decision.
Well, he just gutted the team. What? Yeah.
It's still crazy that Cam Whitmore's still on the
Yes.
board. I'm still very surprised that he's on the board.
When
Somebody's
I'm
going to have to
done.
take him at some point.
Yeah.
And there he is. There he goes. Goes to Houston. Goes to Houston. So Houston so far, obviously they draft Cam Whitmore, a guy that slid down. There's got to be something that's not talent or athletic reasons why he slipped down. It could be an attitude thing. It could be, a culture thing that maybe he's not a good fit. And he just went to a team that is a complete disaster of culture, which is Houston. So, this is, and I think Ime Udoka has a really hard task ahead of him in Houston, where this team has a lot of young talent, but a lot of attitudes, and there's only one ball. And I just do not see this going very well in Houston.
Now, did you think Udoka was a good coach in Boston? I mean, the reason I ask that is because, I mean, obviously, Boston pretty much ended up, short of the finals. They went to the finals, last year. This year they lose in Game 7 to the Miami Heat. Offense is pretty similar to what they ran last year. Didn't see a whole lot of innovation as far as utilizing players, and you've seen Brown and Tatum pretty much almost like they was playing against each other opposed to playing together at times, a lot of the times, and uh, I think that hurt them in the long run, and I just don't feel like they've gotten better this past season. So based on what Udoka did in Boston, going to the Houston Rockets,
I,
what's your thoughts? Do you think that's one of those situations where you good coach in a train wreck organization doesn't end well?
well, how Udoka can redeem himself after how he got out of Boston, which we don't really need to name how he got out of Boston because we all
Yeah,
know
well,
it.
yeah, we know
But
that.
when it comes to his way of shaping his team the way that he wants to, then that is where we're going to see if he's actually a good coach, especially with this young roster that has a lot of me first guys that don't really run an offense very well. They play kind of a glorified version of pickup basketball, in my opinion, of how it looks like for Houston. If he can put a stamp on the organization, if he can get if he can get this young team kind of in a real direction, then we will see Ime Udoka probably actually, made bad decisions in Boston. But if he flames out pretty fast in Houston, these players eat him up pretty easily, or they do the same thing what they did with the prior coach in Houston, then I don't think Ime Udoka would be able to coach for quite a while in the league. I think he has a lot of pressure with his situation in order to prove that he is a real coach in this league.
Yeah, he definitely has to prove himself, and the situation in Boston, the way it ended, definitely not a good look. So,
but speaking of Boston, they made a pretty big move last night.
Yeah, they did, man. It's kind of surprising. I wasn't expecting that move.
It was a pretty big trade. Porzingis goes to Boston with 2 first-round picks. Marcus Smart goes to Memphis, and Tyus Jones, a future first and a second, goes to Washington. And for the Boston side of this, Robert Williams has been hurt off and on every year, even though Robert Williams is a really good player. Al Horford is obviously getting up in age, but he somehow, when he goes to Boston, he goes into a time machine and plays really well all the time. Al Horford does. But they needed depth up front, and they knew that. They needed outside shooting from that position. They needed shot blocking outside of Robert Williams. They got all of that, but with the disclaimer of one of the riskiest big men in the league that is really good but is hurt a lot. So Boston made a great move by getting Porzingis. It's a matter of, can Porzingis stay healthy? The answer, as Dallas fans would know, is no, he can't. He played a pretty good season in Washington, and now he's going to have to really play in Boston. And that's how I see it. I like the move for Boston. I think it's a very good gamble where they already had Brogdon, they already had Derek White, and somebody had to go. They determined that they didn't need that defensive prowess of Marcus Smart, and they're getting more of that, and I think in a Porzingis, which they're probably right. I think they are. They don't need Marcus Smart's ball handling because they already have Brogdon, they already have Derek White to do that. Outside of Tatum and Brown to also handle the ball as well. So to trade Marcus Smart, get 2 first-round picks and Porzingis, I think that's a really good roll of the dice on Boston's part.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the Porzingis move, but I also wasn't expecting them to offload Smart. Smart is a guy who we've all looked at over the past, for pretty much his whole career in Boston is one of those guys, one of those staples, locker room guys, heart and soul, type of players. And you understand, and when you want to acquire a guy like Porzingis, you got to give up, a pretty good player in the process. But I really don't know if Boston, understand. I mean, I'm not going to say understand, but they'll find out like the impact of Smart not being there, even though you have a Porzingis. I don't feel like there's outside of Horford, Smart. There's really not really true team leaders. Like, people look at Brown and they look at Tatum and they say, "Oh, those are the leaders," but not necessarily. Your leaders don't have to be the guys that lead the team in points. Uh, you know, most of the time it's the unsung heroes that are the true leaders of your team. So I think they're going to really miss Smart in the locker room and on the court with being one of the better defenders or one of the best defenders from a guard standpoint. Just his ability to be a leader and somebody you could depend on. Obviously he wasn't the greatest on the offensive end as far as scoring points, but the guy does have the ability to hit some shots, and he's had a great career in Boston for a guy who came into the league and really wasn't being looked at as somebody who would be this successful. I mean, coming out of college, he was kind of a question mark from a character standpoint. They was questioning the guy's character because of some things that happened in college, and his attitude. He's always played with passion, but sometimes it got the best of him. But uh, I think Boston made a move to make a move, and yeah, Williams does get hurt up, a lot, but uh, I don't I don't
To,
see them
to
getting
me,
like
I see
better.
it as Porzingis was a position of need, and they had too many guards in Boston, and they decided that Smart was the guy to go. Now, Memphis getting Smart, especially with John Morant out 25 games, that's going to be pretty big for Memphis to be able to, you know, stay pretty relevant before John Morant comes back. And also, come playoff time when Memphis will be in the playoffs, they have a battle tested, a guy who plays very much like how Memphis likes to play and how a Taylor Jenkins would really want in a player. They got him. They got a Marcus Smart. Now, I think Memphis had problems scoring at the end of the playoffs. In that Lakers series, they were getting blown out and they were just missing a lot of shots. And the only thing I don't like about Marcus Smart going to Memphis, as he's too redundant of what Memphis wants to do. And Marcus, and I think Memphis maybe needed another more offensive guy compared to a grit and grind, dive on the ball, give all that leadership. Where I know that Memphis needs leadership, but they also need quite. I think they need that offensive push in the playoffs. The Smart will translate really well in the regular season. I 100% agree with that there, but I am fearful that Memphis will kind of lack offensively in a playoff series.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like Memphis a good move for Memphis. You lose Brooks. Brooks was sort of your tough guy. He was your defender. You had to do something to make up for that loss, for all the antics that Brooks brings to the court. You can't deny for Memphis what he did, over his years there, especially from an energy standpoint. Uh, playing defense and being the anchor guy. Uh, he would have been missed had you not made a move to bring in a guy like a Smart, who is a veteran in a similar role for the Grizzlies, and quite possibly could, straighten things out and help Morant once he comes back, get on a straight path and kind of be a mentor and a big brother to him. So I think the smart move was a great move by Memphis, recognizing a couple needs and going out and getting the guy that they feel would be best fit for for that role.
I think it fits really well for what Memphis does, what they want, their attitude, the culture of that team, what they are to the city, how the fans view them. I mean, he does all of that, and yes, he gives them leadership when obviously that team lacks that extremely heavily. They don't really have a lot of it. They hardly have any of it actually, and he's going to provide that. But when you get locked into a rock fight, which we saw in the NBA Finals in so many games in that series versus Miami, I think Marcus Smart is as good of a rock thrower as all of them out there on the floor in the NBA Finals, and that's where that's the only concern that I have about it.
So let me ask you a question to this draft. We've seen some players get drafted here. We talk about. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I know I butchered it. But the kid who went to San Antonio, and we saw his teammate get drafted. Now, what shocked me was the next couple picks in the top. I want to say 5 or 7. They had a few kids that was drafted from out of the overtime league. Is this the first? Is this the first draft class that they've had coming out of that league? Because I don't remember anybody last season coming out of there.
Yes, it is the first ones because the team that Scoot Henderson played for, the G League Ignite, is a different team than the Overtime Elite. The Overtime Elite played in a different league than the G League Unite was. The G League Unite was in the G League, where the Overtime Elite was not in the G League. So, for two players and to go back to back to be in not even the G League, to go in the the 4th pick and the 5th pick is pretty remarkable. Now, all I've heard about these two brothers is that they're mainly the same guy. They're 6'6", 6'7", guard forward type of players that need the ball in their hands a lot. They're good playmakers. They're not necessarily good shooters coming out into the league, but they have high IQs. They have good athleticism. They lack the outside shot, but they're good with the ball. But the problem in Houston that I'm going to say is Kevin Porter Jr. is a point guard. He needs the ball in his hands a lot to shoot. I would say Jabari Smith Jr. probably needs plays ran for him. And now you put in a Cam Whitmore who's going to want the ball as well. And as good as Ahmed Thompson is supposed to be as the number 5 pick and how he's so versatile, who's going to be the playmaker? Who's going to be the guy that is the passer, gets all the assists, and runs this offense? It didn't work well with Kevin Porter Jr. You didn't like his coach. Steven Silas is not a very good coach. But to me, this is another concern of Houston. We have to see what Ime Udoka is going to do. Is he going to tell Kevin Porter, you're coming off the bench and you're going to run the offense and you're going to help in the 4th quarter as well? Or is he going to have Ahmed Thompson do a lot of this playmaking, facilitating, while Jalen Green is not really suited for that? He's more the scorer. I think Houston just has a lot of issues and a lot of uncertain questions. I know at the beginning of the offseason, there was so much James Harden to Houston buzz. And right now, I think it's kind of quieted down, even though Houston has the most salary cap available to them in the league. They're going to have close to $60 million in cap space. Of course, they haven't signed any of their young players to extensions because they're not up for those yet. So, yeah, you're going to have a lot of cap space. But as OKC is seen right now, you're going to be starting to have to extend all these guys. So, and of course, what Boston's conundrum is with Jaylen Brown at the moment. So, to me, I still think that, yeah, they made a good pick with Amen Thompson with Houston as the 4th overall pick. But I just this Houston team is an absolute train wreck to see what's going on here.
Yeah, obviously, if James Harden do make the move to go back to Houston, it's not to win basketball games. He's just looking to cash in.
Yes, completely agree.
Because they're not winning, they're not close to winning, and he won't be a difference maker to bring, bring Vic wins. I mean, I thought he fit in pretty good with what the Philadelphia 76ers had, but maybe he's mad and he was a Doc Rivers guy. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think this Houston situation is a disaster. But there is another team. Speaking of the draft in Texas, that just obviously they drafted their franchise cornerstone player. The best draft prospect we've ever seen, in my opinion. Wembanyama is the real deal. I really believe that he can change the franchise, all the franchise, the measurements, the athletic ability, the shooting, the shot blocking. I mean, we're talking about a rookie that can average over 4 blocks a game probably in his rookie season. And he's not going to play a full season for sure. But to me, Victor Wembanyama is going to be the real deal. This San Antonio team, I mean, they're not terrible. They do have some talent outside of him. They got Keldon Johnson, and they got a good young player in Devin Vassell that I think San Antonio at least has a chance. But for now, Victor Wembanyama is a franchise-altering player. He is a terrific. He could do everything, and he's 7'4". He has an over 8 feet wingspan. With shoes on, he's 7'5", and he can almost dunk the ball flat-footed. His hands are just as big as Derek. Hold on to your hat or hold on to your headset here. Kawhi Leonard. And we're talking about he can make plays on the floor, and don't be surprised when these highlight tapes of he can contest a guy going. The guy kicks it out for a corner 3. Wembanyama can affect that corner 3 shot all in one play. He has the capability of doing that nobody has ever been able to do before.
Do you think he's needs to put on a little bit more weight, and will his size be a factor? Early on, because he is tiny. He's about the same size of Chet Holmgren. He's just taller.
He is a little taller than Chet Holmgren, correct. But to me, his size will matter in his rookie year. He will get, people will put some shoulders in him. They'll put some nose in him to dunk on him and to get into his. But he's also going to come down the floor and dunk in their face too. He's also going to come down the floor to embarrass them in a shot-making situation. I do think his size will be kind of a downside of him, but look at Kevin Durant. he had put on some muscle throughout his career, and it worked for him. Wembanyama, I feel like all we're looking for over the next 2 to 3 seasons, 20 pounds, 30 pounds of muscle, and all of a sudden you got an unstoppable force.
Yeah, they was interviewing him about 30. Well, before we came on, and he was talking about his weight, and he was saying he don't need to put on weight; he just need to get stronger. Uh, when you're 7'5", 223, yeah, you probably need to put on some weight, buddy. I mean, you get stronger all day long, but the weight is going to help your body be able to absorb that beating that you're going to be taking. So, yeah,
But
you know,
but on the flip side of that, you also got to look at it this way too. Look at the problems that Zion's having, and look at where the injuries, where they're at, where Zion is having. He has too much weight. He is too big of a guy. Now, I'm not obviously Zion's not 7'4", of course, but I think Zion has the opposite problem. And Wembanyama does do workouts each game, before games, to strengthen his feet, strengthen his ankles, even strengthen his toe muscles, to where he can absorb some stuff to this, to your night in and night out type of wear in the league, for his feet and ankles to actually sustain it. Where I think Zion Williamson doesn't do that, or his body maybe is too big. And at that point, we have seen where his injuries are. They're all below the weights. And
yeah,
I think if you get to Wembanyama at a 255, in a couple of years at the most, say that, I believe he doesn't need to be 7'2", guy. He doesn't need to be that. I think to who Victor Wembanyama really is as an NBA player, and how much better he is going to get. Because you don't want your 7'4" center to be just lumbering up and down the floor and hoping he gets through the game. You want him fresh, and you want him to still be playing big minutes that eventually San Antonio is going to need him to do. And so, to me, I actually like his frame. Yes, there is some room for it, but it doesn't need to be too much.
yeah, I agree with that. And not too much, but just enough to where you could be in the shape that you need to be in to deal with the physicality of the league, or he'll just get punished. I mean, the same thing with Chet Holmgren. I feel like uh, too small. The skill level is there. Obviously, we've seen
Yes.
it all. But
Yes.
if you're gonna, 7'5", let's first of all let me rephrase that, because when you're 7'5" and you're attacking the basket and you decide you're gonna go up for a dunk, it's gonna be very few that's gonna challenge you. Anyway, but
Well,
um,
he does have moves in the post, and it's kind of funny how it will look like when he does it. Is a guy will be guarding him in the post, and he's just going to be able to flip it over his head, and just it's kind of like a dad flipping it over the son's head and being able to just knock it in.
yeah,
It's
I guess we
hold on,
there he is.
hold on a second.
Man, having a little bit technical difficulties. Nicholas Lane will be back.
All right, I'm here.
All
So
right, there he is.
so for the things that he's going to be able to do on the floor, it's going to be too hard to guard. I don't think even Joel Embiid will be able to block a shot very much, and he is, a 7-1 center himself. I looked at the play-in game. I watched the play-in game against Minnesota for OKC. Of course, they didn't have Chet Holmgren, and of course OKC didn't have any size, and they got demolished by Gobert and Towns on the inside. And I thought about it and said, you know what, Chet Holmgren, it wouldn't have mattered. He wouldn't have been able to go up against a Gobert yet, and they still would have lost, even if they had Chet Holmgren. But
Yeah.
to me, the skills that he can have by drawing these centers out to him, and then being able to have a good passing ability to find, the other players on your Giddies, your Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders, your Dort, Jalen Williams, in order to make it happen. I think that's going to be more important than maybe Chet Holmgren shot blocking on OKC going forward, is that Holmgren can draw out the defense and he still has good passing ability in order to find the open player. And I think that's going to be a really good tool that OKC is going to need going forward. But to me, I don't think Wembanyama is a bust. I really feel that he is going to be an excellent player in this league, and we're going to look back by saying that this guy is going to be a perennial all-star and he's going to be a franchise player.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him play. Not having really seen a guy of that size, possess the skills that he do have, will be different. It'll be adjustment for a lot of, players around the league. He's going to do some things that not used to seeing coming from a guy of his height, So, that's going to be interesting. San Antonio definitely, did their homework and, made the right decision on picking who they think will be the guy leading their, franchise. So
I think he is. And then we go to the number 2, and we have Brandon Miller going to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, Michael Jordan was the final say in this decision to draft Brandon Miller. And what's interesting about this is Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball played the same position. Now, the reason why Minnesota never drafted Steph Curry is because, they drafted Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. They didn't want to draft point guards back to back. And now, you're looking at I would say the Hornets maybe being afraid of having Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball together. That could be a mistake, because I think Brandon Miller, yes, he will be fine in the league, but I think he has a higher chance of busting compared to a Scoot Henderson. And yes, Brandon Messi is versatile, and yes, he can score well. He's kind of like George. He could be a Danny Granger. To say Charlotte again, I think, and I think long term will be a better player in the league than I think, and that's where feel on is.
Yeah, Charlotte's been getting the room quite a bit. They got the pick right with drafting LaMelo, obviously, but a whole lot of else around it. Drafting, free agency moves just hasn't been there, and they're gonna have to get better and improve, on that, or it's gonna be the same thing year after year.
I I think that you're right about that. They drafted more need than best player. And outside of Wimbanyama, Scoot Henderson is the best player in this draft. And I like to think that again, Charlotte just they just get it wrong. And can Brandon Miller be good? Of course he can. He is exactly what the league wants at the moment. A 6'7" dude who's versatile. He can play defense. He can shoot. Maybe not a good passer, but the guy has the size to figure it out. And but then you go to Portland and you have the most confusing situation I've felt this entire time in the top five of what to do. And there was no drama with Portland. There was nothing really, concrete here. They didn't turn number 3 into Pascal Siakam. They didn't turn it into Zion. That could have happened here. But for now, Portland put themselves in a weird spot. Obviously, drafting Scoot Henderson, you do it because he's the best player available. He is the best player outside of Wembanyama. But Portland puts themselves now in a really strange spot. They have Damian Lillard, who wants to win now. Scoot Henderson is a rookie. Anthony Simons is still really young. Yeah, there's nothing new there. Okay. So, Anthony Simons is still pretty young, and it tells me that they're going to pay Jeremy Grant this a new contract, and they're going to kind of run it back. Portland's not necessarily an aggressive team to make big deal moves, and they got Yusuf Nurkic they need to move, and they got Anthony Simons they should move, and they had that number 3 pick to get something done, and just drafting Scoot and keeping the way that this roster is, to me, it doesn't make any sense at all. And especially when Damian Lillard has the highest trade value that he's probably going to have for a long time, even at the age that he's at.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. You got somebody on. I think this person is listening off of YouTube, so got a
Awesome.
little YouTube subscriber here.
To me, Portland just put themselves in a weird spot. You got Simons as a shooting guard who's undersized. Scoot Henderson 6'2", Lillard 6'3", but Scoot Henderson is more that Westbrook type of a guard, and Lillard is obviously more of a better shooter. Portland I don't know what it is about them, but they are so good at locking themselves into undersized backcourts. I really think that the right move here, long term for this franchise, is to move Lillard, get the maximum capital you can get back, which you can get a lot back for him right now. Give Scoot the ball, let him play for 35 minutes a night, and start over. They have a pretty good small forward in Shaedon Sharpe, and you still got Nurkic and Simons to possibly get some value out of that. And to me, Portland's going to resign Jeremy Grant, and they're just going to be the same team, but just maybe a tiny bit better. I just don't understand what Portland's doing. It's really confusing. And, they got the best player outside of Wembanyama in this draft, but this roster is just a disaster. I don't think they have a good coach in Chauncey Billups, and this is just not a good situation for Portland.
Yeah, yeah, I think. What are you talking about? I can't get in the name of the player that they were talking about, but Charlotte is back on the clock. Who at pick 27? Isn't it one round, right?
No, it's
Game
two
set.
rounds. They
Oh,
have
it is.
they'll have 58 picks because of some free agency tampering where they're not going to have 60 picks. They're going to have 58.
Oh, okay. Well,
Second round moves a little faster. There's a lot more trades in the second round because you're trying to you can trade out of a second round pick to get future second round picks, or you can trade into the second round to get a player that doesn't, keep. It's kind of like the NFL in a sense, to where late round pick guys are not guaranteed contracts, and the second round guys. This is where a lot of furious trading starts happening. It's either towards the end of the first round or or in the second because of that reason. Teams that have zero cap flexibility, they might want the second round, so they have a chance at just taking a small swing at a player and seeing if they can get him to work out through camp. But teams that are maybe lower on the totem pole in the league, they can trade out of the second round picks and get future assets, and then just not have and then just go to the undrafted pool. So the second round just moves pretty fast. There's a lot of deals that happen.
yeah.
But
So
but I guess back to Portland, we'll see in free agency, how serious Lillard is about wanting to be moved, about having Portland wanting to move him. Brooklyn has the most assets to be able to throw at Portland, where Miami probably has the best player to come back in a Tyler Hero. To be able to in a trade, if Portland wants more of like a right now talent compared to future assets. So to me, if you put Lillard, Butler, and Adebayo on the Heat with all those your Max Struces, your Gabe Vincents, and your Caleb Martins, your Hayward Highsmith, which I really like that Hayward Highsmith kid. That makes it really meaningful for Miami to have another chance at going back to the finals, compared to a Brooklyn where they're just like we have Mikal Bridges and Lillard and a bunch of dudes that we don't really know what else we're getting. So Brooklyn wouldn't really still know where they're at. They would just be in a better spot. Where Miami, they could be the favorites in the East if they got a Damian Lillard trade.
oh, okay. Well, it all makes sense.
I'm
Let's
gonna
see.
give a little bit of a shout out to my team for the OKC Thunder and what they did tonight. They had the 12th pick. They traded up to 10 with Dallas, and they to give back the 12th pick. They got Kason Wallace out of Kentucky, who it looks like to me on the floor, which is obviously a dog. Just a dog that's really, really working hard. Not really known as a shooter, more of a ball hawking defensive guy. And it looks like to me that this Kason Wallace kid is another Lou Dort. It's kind of interesting to me. Lou
Yeah,
Dort is not he's improved as a shooter since he came undrafted, but he is just a hustler, a dog out there that's just gonna give you just tenacious defense. And it looks like to me Kason Wallace is very similar. And if you have to trade up 2 spots to make sure you get your guy at the price of wait for it, Derek, two-time Anthony Bennett All-Star Davis Bertans, then, it's a good gamble because obviously these are the type of things you can do when you build your roster correctly is you can take on a bad contract, obviously a top 5 worst player in the league, in my opinion, in Davis Bertans, in order to get your guy that you really need. And OKC says, okay, fine, we'll absorb this really bad player. Okay, sure, whatever. But we just got our guy. And that is why you give yourself this flexibility to do that. You didn't have to give up any future assets, not even throwing in a second round pick. All you had to do was like, okay, fine, we'll take your bad contract. We want this guy. And I did see that this year, Bertans is owed a lot of money. And then next year, he's only guaranteed $5 million of that. And I guarantee you, one season of Davis Bertans playing garbage time on the bench, doing nothing because he's so terrible. And they're obviously only going to eat that $5 million the following season in his last year of his deal, which I've said many times in my Anthony Bennett article that once this deal is over with, Davis Bertans is not good enough to stay in the NBA. I just don't think he is. I don't see it. So I would like to say that OKC got their guy. They made a great move, even though they took on this bad contract. They can absorb it. Just like, this is a move that like Orlando can make because they have cap space. They have ways to maneuver around a little bit. I'm not saying that Orlando needs to do that, but OKC gave a good example of if you wait patiently, you use your cap space correctly, you can move up and get your guy without having to give up future assets.
Yeah, so post trade, Indiana's a lot of trades, man.
With Denver.
Yeah, so how many picks is it? 30 teams in the NBA?
Yeah, it's 30 teams. Detroit
Okay.
has the first pick in the second round.
All right. So once we're done with this first round, we want to get out of here because I have to do some
So the
things,
last
but
thing,
we'll
the
go
last
ahead.
thing I'm gonna bring up is two things in a one part thing here. That the Chris Paul trade from today going to Golden State. I want to start with the Wizards side, and Derek, I'm a big fan of rebuilds. I'm a big fan of when teams decide to blow it up and rebuild. Washington's under new management, and they turned Beal and Porzingis / Chris Paul into Landry Shamet, Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, that 20, 30 first round picks, 4 pick swaps, and 7 second round picks, where they used one of those second round picks to get Bilal, to get Wembanyama's teammate. And, they only swapped 1 pick in order to do that with the Indiana Pacers. So to me, they got Dendia. They got a starting guard, Tyus Jones, and they have Jordan Poole, who can actually be like a piece. I applaud Washington with the pieces that they had available to them in order to make this work. And I think it's a start. They got a long way to go. They're not going to be good next year. They're going to be like probably the worst team in the East, which is saying a lot because Detroit is really bad. But I like the start of where Washington is. For Golden State, you're looking at a really hefty tax bill that Chris Paul is going to probably come off the bench, and he's going to provide pretty good leadership and facilitating defense at really well. Paul is what you don't ask him to do too much. It's going to work. But and you got we got to resign Draymond Green. Kuminga will probably take on a bigger role here. So right now, we're looking at the Warriors. You know, they're going to be really good. I don't think they're the favorites in the West because we both see that Denver is. But also, I think they're going to still be really good in Golden State.
All right, P's in 29th pick. Okay, Julian Strawberry, Gonzaga.
And I mispronounced Wembanyama teammate's name, Bilal Coulibaly, that Washington received in that one pick swap with Indiana, you know, the trade up one selection. So Bilal Coulibaly will go to a really good situation where he will get playing time with Washington and the worst in the East. And I really like that move on Washington's part. So good job on Washington there. Great job on the value they got for Chris Paul from Chris Paul, and you know, they're off to a start for their rebuild. This gives Golden State another year of being relevant, another year of a title window situation where they might have a chance at it. And I like this for Golden State too, but they gave up a pretty significant piece in Jordan Poole. Derek, it is late on your side of the coast.
Oh yeah, it is.
I know that you're getting a little you're kind of resting your eyes a little bit there. So
taking my long blinks.
I'm sorry for our technical difficulties for anybody listening.
Oh yeah.
For taking the time to listen to us here on YouTube. We're very excited to bring you content. Tune in when I am able to come on Wednesdays for the NBA segment. I will do site analysis in what's going on in this crazy league. Free agency is coming up. We still got Kyrie, James Harden, and of course Damian Lillard's situations on the horizon of what is going to really happen. I will be excited to break it all down, to give you my insight and analysis. The Rat Pack Sports Show gives it to you the best way that obviously all of us do. And, thank you for listening.
Hey, no problem, brother. And, so since we got it working now, we'll be, throwing up content here quite a bit. Like, we may do small little segments, breaking news, whatever it is. So,
or as I like to say, emergency. Let's get it, emergency pod. Let's get it in there. Pound the alarms. Get the gondolas going. We need it all. Get sound. Like Lord of the Rings. You get on the mountaintops. You sound the horn, and all the reinforcements come. Then that's the emergency situation that we need here. When just get the trailer and on. We're talking about situation on the end. Be happy to do it.
Yep. No problem, man. But hey, we still got the second round. So if anything happens, just guys, just keep your eyes alert. Hope you're following Nicholas Lane on Twitter because he posts there. The Rat Pack group be on fire if something go off, and you can also check us out on Twitter at Rat Pack Sports with the Z as well, and catch any of this madness that they're calling the NBA draft here with these trades coming in. So I'm pretty sure there'll be a couple more by the end of tonight, and we'll see. But as always, brother, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch you next time on the live feed. So
Thank you.
we will be back. Rat Passport Show is gearing up for the NFL season. Usually every year we take a little break here before training camp to kind of get the energy re-energized a little bit, and as soon as training camp crack open, we'll be back. Sunday nights during the regular season is what it is every Sunday night. So if you miss us on the air, don't worry about it. We just kind of chilling in the high grass until the training camp get going here. Probably about a month away from the first set of teams reporting. Actually, probably 3 weeks, because unless they had that Hall of Fame game, they usually report a couple weeks early for the team that play in the Hall of Fame game. So we'll be back Wednesday nights, the Rat Pack Sports Show. So just stay tuned. Yeah, I don't know none of these kids.
And that concludes the first round.
Yep, and that concludes this live stream here. So we're gonna get out of here, man. Everybody, appreciate you if you're listening on watching on YouTube. Appreciate you tuning in. Facebook as well. You can go back and rerun this and just catch up. So we out of here, man. Rat Pack Sports Show. Wish we could have got on with the first couple picks here, but technical difficulties. But I think we got it now.
Yes, and we covered what we needed to cover in the beginning of the draft. So we got our listeners covered best we could, for sure.
Yep. All right, brother. Take it easy. Enjoy the rest of the draft. And we'll catch you later, man.
Thank you.
Yep. Peace. We're out of here, man. Rat Passport Show. Ew. Rat Passport Show.